started with the meeting. This is the general government meeting. Today is 3/18. I'm convening this meeting in order at 2:02. We are joined by committee member Katie Walsh. Good afternoon, Councilor Walsh, former city councilor and current attorney Ken Shea. Good afternoon, Ken. And then we have the one on the premier extraordinary Parks Department Director, Patrick Sullivan. Good afternoon, Patrick. How are you?
Sir. And we got our fantastic city forester here too.
Yes, I was getting to that. I was going to call him fantastic, very wise tree forester, Alex Sherman, who very shortly is going to give us the rundown on this, what I hope is the final passage for this to go today to the city council. So just to let people home know what we're talking about today, we are talking about on the agenda an ordinance amending chapter 268, also known as the tree ordinance. This ordinance aims to protect our city trees in the city. It is my understanding in the last meeting that we have approximately, and Alex, correct me if I'm mistaken, about 36,000 trees in the city, plus or minus. And
Yes.
what this ordinance it's looking to do is, among many other things, and I will let you, Alex, get into it in a second, is to protect any tree that is 75 years or older in the city, which has a diameter of 3 feet or more. It also talks about the establishment of a fine system, just if the tree is inappropriately cut down, there will be a $500 fine, and there will be a new account that will be created where that money will go in, and that money out of those fines will be used towards the forestry itself. And there is talk about the city being able to prune a tree, as I understand it, that is close to the sidewalk, that is becoming a nuisance and a safety hazard to the pedestrian, in which the city, if the landlord or the person, the owner, does not prune it, that the city has the right to go in, prune it, and pass the bill. That's in a nutshell, in a very 30-second overview, what is the ordinance aims to do. Before we get started, I turn it over to Alex. Can the person named PJS identify themselves, who they are?
I think that's us.
Oh, that's you. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is that Patrick J. Sullivan?
Yeah.
All right, that was okay. That didn't put one together there. All right, without much ado, let's turn it over to Alex. Alex, please give us another quick rundown. And just for the record, this will be the second reading today. There was a confusion in the council last time whether this was the first reading or not. So this will be today. We already have first reading. Today we're going to have the second reading, and might become law today if this gets a good recommendation today, and our wise colleagues agree to it today. Alex, sir, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. Thank you for the excellent summary. You nailed most of the important points. So the one thing that came up at the last meeting was there was a resident at the last subcommittee meeting who recommended that we add a definition for climate change mitigation, which is mentioned in the findings 368-1 findings section. Oh, and the other thing I did want to just mention for the record is that it's my understanding that the chapter is 368. It's referenced as 268, I believe, in the
Yes.
meeting
Yes.
note.
Yes. Thank you for the correction.
368. I looked it up today.
Yeah.
Just to confirm. But
yeah. So yeah, just to be clear, Alex, you're correct. The chapter that we're looking at is 368.
okay, so 368-1 does mention climate mitigation as part of the purpose of this tree protection ordinance. There was a resident that would wanted to include climate change mitigation definition in the definition section in 368-2. I did send out following that meeting a revised version of the draft, which included a definition for climate change mitigation inserted right into the draft text. I did copy this committee as well as Attorney Robert Shushuk from the Law Department for his review. I don't think I received any negative comments or anything, so that would be the only change that was added following the previous subcommittee meeting that we had a couple weeks ago.
Okay, now Alex, just to be clear, is that definition the one that was sent to me? Let me read it to you, making sure we're on the same page, if I may. So this will be under 368-2 on the definitions, and it will read something like climate change mitigation, commitment to practices of sustainable development which allow communities to capture the opportunities of development while minimizing the risk and loss of sensitive natural resources, optimizing the tree canopy and maintaining the integrity of our wetlands and woodlands as community values relevant to the decision-making process of any proposed development. Is that correct?
No, that was not the proposed. I'm gonna have to.
That's what they need that for their own ordinance, so Alex will read.
Yeah,
It's now.
I just need to find it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, would you please? And when did you send it? Because I have not seen
I,
it.
I sent it just the day
2 days.
two days after our last meeting.
Mm,
I should be able to find it right here.
I think I saw it here. Okay,
I apologize, I don't have it sitting here. in front of
that's okay. It says climate mitigation refers to actions. Refers to action limiting the magnitude and rate of future climate change by reducing greenhouse emissions and advancing nature-based solutions.
me. Correct. That's the one.
Okay,
Yep, I just found it. Actions limiting the magnitude and rate of future climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and or advancing nature-based solutions, which, you know, this ordinance directly speaks to nature-based solutions, which are trees.
right, okay. I'm gonna have a question about that in a second, Alex, but I'll let you finish your overall review of the ordinance and the main points.
Yep, sure. So, you know, you mentioned the significant tree section, which is consistent with the previous significant tree ordinance. It does include a fine for violating that ordinance, just so, you know, the city does have some recourse if a tree company is found in violating that ordinance. You mentioned the fines for chapter 87 violations, which is the illegal trimming or cutting of public shade trees. It codifies the fine schedule for that, which is based off what the state law allows of $500 per occurrence. You mentioned mitigation fees, which occur when a healthy public shade tree needs to be removed for development purposes or some other purpose other than the health and condition of the tree. And that allows the city to recoup a portion of the value of that tree, either in inch for inch replacement in trees or at a rate of $50 per DBH inch. So that just gives the city the ability to take funds in, and then if the person chooses the payment in lieu of planting, then that money would then go into the tree replacement fund, which can be used to purchase trees to be planted in the city. It also provides guidelines for excavation and working near public shade trees for construction activities. And then, as well as you mentioned, the maintenance of private trees that are potentially impacting the right of way. It gives us the ability to at least clear to the edge of the right of way and trim the trees so that the the right of way in the city streets remain safe even from private trees originating from private property.
Okay,
It does further outline the permitting processes for trimming, removal, tree planting, and stump grinding. So it formalizes the requirement to have official city permits for those activities. The state law does require trimming and removal permits, which we've been issuing for to date, as well as the significant tree permits. We've been issuing those to date. But it does issue a small fee just for administrative costs incurred by the city to administer those permits. And it also includes stump grinding and tree planting permits, which actually have no fee attached, but we do want to require permitting for those purposes, since contractors or others who are planting or doing stump grinding in the city right of way will be technically working on city property, so we should be notified, and we'll make sure that those companies have proper liability insurance and such for working on city property, even if it's on behalf of a private resident. And that pretty much that sums it up. I don't have anything else that's to add. That was a major change.
okay. So just to be clear, Alex, the change was the climate change definition. That's what I think we added to it, correct?
Yes, I did add that climate mitigation definition that was added as of after the last subcommittee meeting, as requested by
Right.
the rest.
Look, I do have a few questions, but before I turn it over to the councilors, by the way, I'd like to recognize Councilor Tim Allen, who just joined us. Welcome, Councilor Allen. Pat, a quick question. Maybe I misunderstood, I'm not sure, but I thought the consensus was to put the residence definition in, as opposed to the one that Alex.
No one sent us that, Counselor. We don't have a copy of that.
No one sent it to you. Okay.
I understood that the consensus was to create a climate mitigation definition that fits our tree ordinance, and that's what we did.
Okay, I got you.
And no one sent us that other recommendation.
Are you saying, right, are you saying the definition that I read does not fit this ordinance?
I think the one you read fits the scope of what SCANS is trying to accomplish with private lots. I think that better fits that one, and I did follow up with Phil Dromey that he would be working through you and them to create that ordinance for private developers.
With that being said,
When you read it, that's what it reflected to me, was privately, and we only will deal with public way.
public way.
We only deal with public way, so where you're talking about developers and everything else in your definition.
Yeah, but I think, but I got you, but I think there's a little bit of a lap here, which brings me to my other question. If we require contractors to pull permits or even homeowners to get rid of a tree, how do we monitor that?
Through the permit process.
Please educate me. What does that mean?
Well, again, we're only dealing with the public way shade trees by ordinance. We don't deal with the land that they're developing. That would be the planning board, not the park department. So we only deal with if a developer needs a tree removed to create a driveway access or water and sewer access to their lot. That's the only thing we would get involved in. What SCANS is trying to accomplish is controlling the amount of trees taken down on private property, and that's an action of the planning board, not this.
Right.
It's a completely different ordinance that you need.
No, I understand. But I'm still trying to grab how are we, in the name of God, going to monitor this and enforce it?
We do it
Because-
now.
We already have been, yeah. So typically, most tree companies and residents are aware of the state law, which is Chapter 87, which creates the power, that creates the position of tree warden, gives the tree warden the powers of the tree warden, protects, designates, public shade trees as specially protected by state law. And so as it stands now, if anyone wants to trim or remove a public shade tree, they usually contact my office. We go out, inspect the tree, determine what is permittable. We don't just allow anyone to cut a tree down just because they request it. We go out, look at the tree. Is it eligible for removal under our, our standards for current forestry standards?
Right,
If so, we will issue a removal permit to a reputable tree company. We do, if it's a company that I have worked with before, we issue those permits. If I typically will ask for a proof of liability insurance from a company, especially if it's one that's from out of town or that I'm not familiar with, so that we know they have the proper liability insurance to work on city property. And then we issue those permits. Those permits are then added to our tree inventory. So if you look at that site, you can then pull up the tree inventory. You can pull up the permit right off of that digital inventory, as well as the date and time that the work was
Right.
performed, what type of work was done.
right. So Alex, how do we, what's the fine for the permitting process? I mean, excuse me, the fee for the permitting process?
So right now, there is no fee. Moving forward, we would have a $25 fee for the removal permit and the trimming permit. And those would just be simply sent with an invoice to the requesting party for
Right.
payment.
All right, now, if we have a contractor, and they, violate, they do it without the permit, they get a fine, do we put them in some sort of a list to watch for, or do they get the privilege
Yes.
reward? What happens besides the fee?
Yeah, so they would be
Besides the
issued
fine.
so they would be issued a chapter 87 violation, and then until those, we keep those internally here, the list of those current violations. Until that violation is paid in full, they are no longer eligible to get new permits from the city. So if I know that a violation has been submitted to a particular company and they're coming back asking for another permit, I'll typically call the office here and say, hey, did XYZ tree pay that last violation they had? And if the answer is yes, then I'll issue a new permit. If it's no, then I call them back and say, you got to pay, you have to
Gotcha.
settle up your previous violation before I can issue
Gotcha.
a new permit.
And my last question before I turn it over to my colleagues, how much liability insurance are we requiring?
I believe it's typically, what is it? Yeah, for the liability, I don't know. We don't have a specific number. I usually, I forget what most companies carry, at least $1 million. I think it's 1 million, 3 million, I want to say is the typical coverage that I see. But I could check with DPW and see what their minimum standard is, and we would just follow the minimum standard for their liability insurance for utility contractors or others working for the city.
Okay, and just to be clear, that is not, because I didn't see that in the ordinance, that's not being. put
It's not
in-
listed in the ordinance, no.
Okay. Is that something you think that could continue as that is, or you think we should include at a later time in the ordinance?
Currently, it's a policy of the forestry division to require that.
It's just protecting the city from, I think that language is in their council, it protects the city from any liability. It's just stating it that the contractor has to have that responsibility.
Yeah, right, but I think, I personally think it would be wise to have a minimum threshold. So I think DPW even for
If
the,
you put I don't
for
think you
the,
put the limits in
yeah,
a-
if I may,
in
if I may,
ordinance,
I
put
think
the
the
limits.
DP, I don't know if you, Patrick, I don't think you can hear me, but just to finish my thought, I think DPW for the drivers, for the snow removal, they need a minimum of liability insurance. And I'm thinking as I'm talking to you guys here, that perhaps it's something that we should take a little bit of a peek at later on.
Do they have that in, is that in an ordinance format? or
That's
is
in the-
that-
No, I don't think so. I think it's a policy, but they do have
It's in
enough.
their- Right, it's in their contract, counselor, so This isn't a contract, this is just an ordinance. So that would be, in any contract, the city sets the specific limits.
No, I know this is an ordinance, but I'm just saying that maybe even whether, you guys to do, the easier thing will be for you guys to do it, so we don't have to pass an ordinance mandating it, but, I do. my
Which
greater
we
point is that
can do it by
should go back.
policy, I believe. I believe we can set policy that would require a minimum insurance coverage for obtaining a tree.
It would be
work
different.
permit.
It depends on the job though. So I think the reason why you don't put it in this, counselor, is because it's gonna be different for each different type of job that you're going to do.
Right,
Depend, like, if we're hiring a contractor to do a street, their liability coverage would be more larger than one just doing one single tree. So I think that's why you don't set the liability in the ordinance. It would be in the contract that will, if we end up contracting with a company to do
well, I'm
that.
sure we can find a number that will be somewhere in the middle, 1/3 of the wave. Or the
I
curve.
would refer to the law department for that opinion. That would be above my
Well,
knowledge.
we pay grade, okay, all right, it's a good thought, I will, follow up with it with the law department, and so, but anyways, turn it over to my colleagues, any questions, Councilor Walsh, Councilor
Yeah,
Khan?
yeah, thank you very much, Victor, for having this meeting. Hi, Pat. Hi, Alex. I just
Hello.
want to make sure, who is this ordinance targeting? And we're not talking about private property at all, are we?
Just on the significant trees, if someone had a tree that was a significant tree, then they would get permission by the park commission to remove that tree. That's been on the books since the early eighties, that ordinance. And we will still trim a tree in front of someone's house. We're not charging the homeowner for us to maintain the tree in front of their house, so I'll let Alex go into additional detail.
Yeah,
So,
so, go
So
ahead.
to be clear, you're not talking about trees in people's yards, right? Or are you?
So there's two different sections in the ordinance. The bulk of the ordinance is targeted towards public trees within the public right of way along our streets, as well as, in our parks and other, municipal properties. There is a significant tree section which has been on the books, as Pat
Right.
said, since even the mid-70s.
76.
76, yeah. And,
I know
that-
some of the people who wrote it.
yes, that's right.
Dan and Ben Brighton.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, I found an article at the
Yeah.
Springfield History Museum's talking about it. So that part of their ordinance, I changed that very little. The only thing we added was a fine for violating that ordinance. And that would typically get issued to a tree company. Most of the fines in this, my intent is to find a tree company that's in violation. And mainly because, a homeowner who goes out with some pruners and cuts some limbs off a tree, likely, they're only going to damage that one tree. A tree company has the ability to go tree after tree across the city and for multiple clients. There is the odd, occasion where, there's an egregious violation by a homeowner. We may, submit a fine to a resident, but the goal mainly is to get the tree companies to understand that there's some teeth to this ordinance and that if they violate it, that they're likely going to see a fine for that. So that's the only part. The significant tree is the only portion that relates to private trees. We're not regulating any trees that are less than 36 inches in diameter or less than 75 years of age. They have to be over those thresholds, which is what it's been historically since the significant tree ordinance was passed.
Okay. And Alex, in your experience, do a lot of tree companies violate?
We do have occasional violations. It's not, we aren't out every single day, driving the streets looking for violators, but we do get calls from neighbors occasionally saying, hey, my neighbor's getting a really large tree cut down. It may be a
Oh,
significant tree, and we'll go out and check. Every once in a while, if I'm driving around, incidentally, and I see a tree company working on a large tree, I'll stop and talk to them and ask them if they are aware of the ordinance. Usually have copies of it in my truck that I pass out to them, so they have the language right there. And if it's a company that I know knows the rules and they're in violation, then yes, I would I would likely issue a fine to them. But it's not something that we're not issuing fines weekly for the violations of this or of that ordinance.
Good to know. And I did see you out on the terrace today doing your job.
Oh, yeah, yes, yeah, there was a down limb, so I figured I would take care of it while I was driving by.
Pat, I don't see any packing boxes there.
Oh, you don't, huh?
No.
Very well. Is that all your questions, Councilor Walsh?
Well, yeah, I just needed to be clarified what we were actually voting on.
Excellent, excellent. Councilor Allen, you have any questions?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Counselor Davila. First off, am I muted or unmuted?
All muted.
You're up.
Unmuted.
You're
All right.
unmuted, you're sideways.
Upside down.
Well, I don't know. All right. Well, first off, are we planning to vote on this tonight?
Yes.
And that's fine. Is there, like, I've been in the 2 committee meetings and I've been involved with scans meetings and stuff. I know a little bit about this coming in. But is there, like, who's gonna present it in terms of a summary of what it stands for? Will you, is there a counselor doing that, or? I don't feel I'm prepared to do it right now.
No, I'm gonna make the, I'm gonna make the introduction, Councilor Allen, that just make some of the quick highlights. They're gonna turn it over to this fine gentleman to give, to wrap it up and to answer more technical questions, and God willing, it should pass today.
Right,
Mhm.
Alex will be there tonight, and then Pete Groupsick will be down there on the park grant that we have tonight.
Oh, good.
Okay, great.
I'll send you I'll send you this 1-page summary sheet that I have that I find useful to kind of summarize. So you can have that for the meeting tonight. I'll send you that after this.
Alex, would you
That
mind?
would be great. That's mainly what I'm feel missing. Like I had conference in last week around this time, whatever, and this time, and I'm a summary, a 1-page summary would be helpful for me.
Yeah.
I'll send it to all 3 counselors on the call today.
I think it'd be helpful to send it to the council office and have them printed out for all the counselors.
Right.
Yeah.
I will also say, Alex, to please send it
Yeah.
out. Send it out to
Susan.
the city council office and have them send out to all the councilors that we all have it.
This
Excellent.
afternoon.
He'll copy you 3 as well when he sends it to Susan.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you.
sounds good.
Thank you.
All right,
Any other
I'm not-
questions?
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, very well. So it seems like the only thing that we have to decide is do we accept the amendment to, I'm gonna read it back. Give me a second here.
I just want to thank all 3 of you for these meetings and for all your support.
No problem, Pat. So just for the record, I'm gonna reread the amendment proposed. So we are going to, or the proposal is to add definition under section 368-2 to read climate mitigation refers to actions limiting the magnitude and rate of future climate change by reducing greenhouse emissions and or advancing nature-based solutions. Any questions on that? No? Okay, so we only have Katie Walsh and myself who are members of the committee, voting members.
I'll
Katie, you
make
make
a
a mo-
recommendation that we approve this and bring it to the full council for a
Very
vote. tonight.
well. I vote yes, and you vote
I vote yes.
yes. So the amendment passes, and we will bring it up to our colleagues tonight, to what I like to call the wise and humble body of the city council to consider this. Very well. So everything will stay as is in the ordinance. And Pat, Alex, I will give you the floor if you have anything you want to add.
I just want to thank you again, and then I just think it's very ironic that Councilor Walsh's husband worked on this back in '76, and now she's here to work on it again in 2004, so.
I won't make any corrections to what Danny did. Alex, do you have that article?
He'll get even with you if you do.
Yeah, if
Very well.
a tree falls in front on my sidewalk, I'll know.
Yeah.
Alex, do
Very
you
well.
have to refer to?
The
All right.
article,
I'm sure I have it somewhere. I did. I took a
think you should.
photo.
Yeah, I remember. I'd like to see it again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will, I'll dig it up and I'll send it to you along with the, one page. There
Yeah.
was a few articles and it did not pass easily. There was some controversy about it back then. There were a lot of questions and, they persevered in the end, so it's
Right.
commendable on their part that they, had the foresight to protect, historic trees in the city,
Well,
so.
That's a good point, Counselor, in that if they hadn't had that ordinance passed, we could have had, it would have changed the landscape of our city, removing these beautiful trees, and that's the whole point. And I
Right?
think that's Skans's point is to protect the trees of our city, so
Right.
that's why this ordinance is so important.
Right, and I have to say that I'm glad that this is moving forward, so at least we get something in the book.
Yeah.
Now we have to
That's a
start
good
worrying
first step.
about, yes, they have to start looking at it seriously. How do we manage the fine line between development and housing, which is a problem in Springfield, and the environment, and I would say also the historical area of it, because there has to be a fine balance. And I don't know what the fine balance is, because after all, we do need housing. So, but we also need the trees. So we seem to be in a little bit of a conundrum here, do we? And
Well,
so,
I think, so if I may, Counselor, you
Okay.
should use the analogy where Counselor Allen and I live East Forest Park, when they built those houses, Chatelaine, they carved those houses where they didn't clear cut the land. All those big oaks in East Forest Park have been there longer than the houses have been there. So I think your East Forest Park neighborhood is the best example of not clear cutting lots, but carving out just enough land, of the land to build a house, but leaving the trees on the property.
right,
And you can
right,
point to East Forest Park for that,
Right.
that analogy. Like Council
Right.
Allen, where you live, those trees are older than the houses.
No,
I know, you
I'm
know,
glad you said that because I hadn't thought to say that, but it's really true. I mean,
yeah,
I've got 2 or 3 oaks left in my yard, but unfortunately I had to take some down. One or 2 were taken down by the, not the tornado, the other thing we had. Um, and, yeah, it's beautiful. In my yard, there's a couple newer trees, but basically my whole street has got oak trees that have been there forever, and, it looks good. It looks like, the other side is what happened in your neighborhood, Pat, where you lost so many trees because of the tornado.
exactly. And it does, it makes it it's an 8-degree difference between where Council Allen lives and where I live on a hot day. Because we don't no longer have that shade cover, but I think that's the best analogy, Councilor Davila, that you can give. And where Councilor Walsh lives, luckily in her neighborhood, that was like open farmland where her houses were built, but they planted a ton of trees in the early 1900s, and that's why Forest Park neighborhood looks as good. But East Forest Park, it was carved out, those houses, and it was smart how the developer built them, because it was
right,
like
right.
an instant neighborhood.
No, that's a point well taken. Living
Yeah.
there, I can really appreciate that. Thank you.
And that's what I think that's Councilor Davila and the other, that's your goal with what scans is it should be not a, you should have an ordinance where you're not allowed to clear cut a lot to build a house, but just clear enough to build the house itself on the property.
Correct,
And
correct.
create a play yard.
Yeah,
But
this
I-
sounds great. Sounds like the beginning of a great conversation. So, very well. So with that being said, just to make it official, Councilor Walsh, I want to take a motion to bring this matter to the wise and humble body of the city council.
Yeah, so moved.
All right, I vote yes, and you vote
I vote
Yes.
yes.
yes, very well. So we will bring this out to the city council tonight, for final passage. Alex, would you just, help me cover the basis and resend this to, the clerk, the new draft, so she has it, please?
Yes, yep, I will.
Very
I'll
well.
send a package out right now. Yep.
To Clerk Oyola. Very well, with that being said, unless you guys have any questions, thoughts, concerns, we'll be adjourning.
Right?
Okay, all set.
And